listening to the Bob Duco Show. I'm talking right now about Israel and how unfortunate it is that President Obama has done what he's done to Israel now, is parting shot against this nation. I was reading a piece in Barbed Wire by Dr. Michael Brown. It's entitled Obama and Israel from 2008 to 2016, a story of betrayal and reversal. You make some excellent points that Barack Obama, when he was a senator and he was running for president, he promised to be the best friend Israel ever had. But then once he got in office, he really, in many cases, turned his back on them. Now, not in every case. There's some things that he did standing up for Israel, but by and large, he's been extremely soft in his support of Israel, and this latest thing is just a flat-out betrayal. Let me read to you a little bit of what Dr. Brown says. Quote, in June 2008, presidential candidate Barack Obama gave a stirring speech to AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, making strong commitments to the Jewish people and Israel. Here's what he pledged. Now, again, this is candidate Barack Obama talking to AIPAC. This is the main, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. This is like the main, like the largest pro-Israel public affairs organization in America. So this is very significant. He wanted AIPAC's vote. So here's what he said to them as a candidate in 2008, quote, as president, I will work to help Israel achieve the goal of two states, a Jewish state of Israel and a Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security. And I won't wait until the waning days of my presidency. I will take an active role and make a personal commitment to do all I can to advance the cause of peace from the start of my administration, end quote. Then the piece says, ironically, he's done exactly the opposite, not only failing to move the peace process forward, but rather in, ironically, the waning days of his presidency, taking aggressive steps to undermine the peace process and to betray Israel. In 2008, Barack Obama declared, quote, Jerusalem will remain the capital of Israel, and it must remain undivided, end quote. Last week, John Kerry, President Obama's Secretary of State, declared a peace agreement that would, quote, provide an agreed resolution for Jerusalem as the internationally recognized capital of the two states. John Kerry added, most acknowledge that Jerusalem should not be divided again like it was in 1967, and we believe that. At the same time, there is a broad recognition that there will be no peace agreement without reconciling the basic aspirations of both sides to have capitals there, end quote. Now, in other words, folks, what John Kerry said, and John Kerry he's President Obama's mouthpiece, okay? He's the one who's dictating President Obama's foreign policy. What John Kerry said out of both sides of his mouth was Jerusalem cannot be divided, which is Israel's position. Don't divide Jerusalem. Jerusalem cannot be divided, and we believe that it cannot be divided. But at the same time, we recognize both sides have to have capitals there. In other words, Jerusalem should not be divided, but it should instead be divided. Really, if you think about it, folks, what a nonsensical statement to make. The piece goes on. You cannot have it both ways. Either Jerusalem is the undivided capital of Israel, or it's the divided capital of Israel and Palestine. And if Jerusalem is to be the undivided capital of Israel, then Mr. Kerry has no reason to protest strongly the relocation of our embassy to Jerusalem, which he did this week as well. Joel Pollack points out that, quote, through the Obama administration's acceptance of the UN Security Council Resolution 2334 last Friday, America now regards the Israel presence in East Jerusalem as settlements that are in, quote, flagrant violation of international law, end quote. This means effectively the Obama administration has allowed the Palestinians to claim East Jerusalem as their own. Then he says, getting back to 2008, candidate Barack Obama was very clear about the danger that Iran presented to Israel, saying, quote, there is no greater threat to Israel or to the peace and stability of the region than Iran. end quote. Now keep in mind, folks, this was candidate Barack Obama in 2008 promising Israel, I'll be your friend, promising American Jewish voters, vote for me, I'll be a friend to Israel. I recognize there is no greater threat to Israel than Iran, which, by the way, he was right. Then candidate Barack Obama was speaking truth in 2008. He went on in 2008 to say this, quote, the Iranian regime supports violent extremists and challenges us across the region. It pursues a nuclear capability that could spark a dangerous arms race and raise the prospect of a transfer of nuclear know-how to terrorists. Its president denies the Holocaust and threatens to wipe Israel off the map. The danger from Iran is grave. It is real, and my goal will be to eliminate this threat. End quote. Folks, that was candidate Barack Obama in 2008. Pandering for the Jewish vote and the pro-Israel vote in America. Now, contrast that with what President Obama has now done with his Iranian deal, taking Iran, the number one danger and threat to Israel, and making them more powerful by lifting economic sanctions on Iran, allowing $150 billion in sanction relief money to flow into Iran, knowing full well that Iran's going to use some of that money to increase their funding of terrorist attacks against Israel. Because, it's Iran that's been funding arms and money to Hamas and Hezbollah, who's been attacking and shooting rockets into Israel. Where do you think they've been getting the money and the rockets? They've been getting them from Iran. Now that Iran has an extra $150 billion coming their way, what do you think they're going to do with that money? You think Iran is going to suddenly say, oh, well, we like Israel now. Now that we're rich, now that we have a lot more money than we had before, we decided we like Israel now. Anybody out there think that's going to happen? What President Obama did was took the number one danger and threat to Israel in Iran and say, here, Iran, let us give you a lot more money and a lot more power. That's what he did with this sweetheart deal that I told you about last year. But in 2008, he told Israel and Israeli Americans, vote for me because I recognize Iran is your biggest danger, your biggest threat, and I'll make sure that you're protected from them and I'll eliminate them as a threat for you. You see why so many people like myself have been so critical of this president? All right, hang on. I'll continue through this, and then we'll get to what Palestine means today, and it's all coming up here on the Bob Dutko Show.